could be. I was going to suggest that exactly. It could be a sail in bright sunlight, the sky, yellow deck, something like that. In other words, it's not necessarily not a landscape, but it could be. But beyond that, you can see that these are three colors, all with subtle value relationships, right?
Yes.
And then two colors that are neutral, that are just value differences, right? Whereas this one has much starker relationships. Okay, so those kind of things are the kind of things that make up color composition. In other words, what is the nature of the relationships of the color? Okay, so driving down here today, I noticed that although Hurricane Sandy did her best to destroy the autumn colors, that it's like one of the first days you could call an autumn day today. Right? You start to see colors. And people think of autumn, a lot of people think of fall colors as being just brighter colors, right? But to a painter, one of the main things that changes in the landscape between this, say, June and October is that the values in the landscape all become much closer. What do you think that is? What's happening to the leaves? What's changing about the leaves? About foliage?
The leaves.
Well,
Darker, blacker.
Just the opposite.
The opposite.
The pigment is fading from the leaves. Okay? The purpose of pigment, the purpose of chlorophyll, there's that word chloro again, what does it mean?
Green.
Green, right? The purpose of chlorophyll is to consume sunlight. It is to absorb sunlight. And there's also red pigment in there, which protects the chlorophyll, the chloroplasts. And so there are two pigments that are eating green and eating red. The odd thing is that the chlorophyll is consuming the opposite ends of the spectrum, blue and green, blue and red. But what happens in the fall is the green pigment fades first. It's fugitive. It's a little more fugitive than the red, and then the red starts to fade. And as those pigments die out in the landscape, yeah, you get much more variation in color, but also all of that foliage gets much lighter in color, so that the differences between the values in the landscape are much more subtle in the fall than they are in the spring. Also, the sun is lower. There are other reasons that contribute to that, but that's basically what happens, and that's basically why colorists like to start to play with those colors, because now they have these subtle relationships. So I was thinking,
The tree trunks.
what
get
if
darker. But the tree trunks get darker.
No, the tree trunks don't get darker. They just seem darker in relationship to the leaves, which are lighter. Remember, it's only relationships that you see. That's all you can see. You know that as light levels go up and down, your brain and your eyes are constantly adjusting everything to try and stay in the same range, just like adjusting the exposure on the camera, right? So we never see light as quantity. We always see it as comparisons. So let's say, I was thinking, well, let's say I wanted to make a landscape about the colors that are in the fall. And so more subtle colors, all right? And maybe less about green. And then I thought, okay, well, what if I give myself one other problem? Let's say I want to make a landscape without blue in it, all right? Because I've done a lot of pictures, even in the gallery. I think a lot of those pictures have blue in it, and so I'm sick of that, and I tend to get sick of it. And okay, so let's say I want to make a landscape, and without blue, and with close relationships in color. But I'm not going to make a landscape, all right? I'm just going to let the color speak. So let's say it's part of this 2-4 series. And now I did 4, and I did 2 and 4. But I didn't do just 2. So let's say I'm going to make a design that's 2. Well, I might do something like that. That feels a little boring. Let's say I made 2 as a landscape. Let's see what I'm doing here. I can't see what I'm doing. There's sort of no light here, but So let's say I'm going to make two as one state. Let's say I'm going to add perspective to it. All right. Let's say I'm going to put a horizon like that, and I'm going to make two, but I'm going to make it two in perspective. So, maybe I'll tighten the end. Maybe I'll go ahead and add 4 to this picture. And I'll make it another painting of 2 and 4, let's say. I'm going to leave the 4 open. So,
By using these numbers, then you're not making a commitment.
Eliminating the subject, right?
Eliminating
I'm
the
trying to
subject.
eliminate the subject, so I don't try and describe the subject. We try and use just color to describe the subject. But I still need design of some kind, right? You guys are all familiar that art is about metaphor, right? I mean, even paintings of landscapes aren't about the landscape. I mean, there's always about something else. Okay, so let's say I did something like this, all right? So let's say forest kind of running off the canvas. Maybe I need to close this shape for it to work. Should I close it that way? I think that way.
Yeah.
All right.
Wasn't
see, so-
Wasn't there an artist who did these numbers? Like, was it Motherwell? I forget.
Jasper Johns.
Jasper Johns.
Yeah, Jasper Johns for a long time just painted numbers. He didn't care about numbers, obviously. Right? It was just something to play with. That's all. Yeah, so here's the idea is that I'm not spending my time drawing a landscape or finding one to draw even. I'm giving myself something to play with. Okay? So I have some shapes here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shapes. Right, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 shapes. All right, so I'm going to need 7 colors. That's kind of a lot. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Same as this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one is 5. So, okay, so 7 colors. That's a good number. You can see that this is perspective. If I added one more curve, say, would be obvious. Maybe I don't want it to be so obvious. But you could see I could do that easily. I could make it obvious that's perspective, but we like a little mystery. Okay, so I have a design with 7 shapes, so I'll need 7 colors. And I'm going to try and make them full colors. So this is kind of going to be a landscape, but the sky isn't going to be blue, so I need another color. So I might start out by trying to come up with that color. And can we think of any other colors that the sky could be?
Black.
It could be any color, right? Sky could be any color. It could be black, it could be gray, it could be green.
Orange.
What is it? Anybody know what does it mean if the sky is green?
Run.
A hurricane is coming.
Oh.
Absolutely. Usually a tornado. It's usually how you tell if a tornado is coming is the sky is green. So it's scary. So if I make the sky green, run. It means something. See, it means something. The colors do mean something on their own. Of course, the sky doesn't have to be at the top. And it doesn't have to be sky at the top. This could be the sky. I think I'll make this the sky.
Could be red.
Okay? It could be violet, it could be pink, it could be yellow, it could be orange, it could be red, it could be black, it could be slate blue. See, I'm thinking now of making a choice as to what color the sky would be. Now, in the past, I would wander around and wait until suddenly the sky was that color, and then copy it down. But that's very hit and miss, and that works sometimes, sometimes it doesn't work. And the trouble is that then you're at the mercy of circumstances. If Picasso was at the mercy of those kind of circumstances, he could not possibly have painted Guernica, right? He painted that like that. It happened, he was outraged, he painted this huge painting, and like 60 others in days. I mean, in the Modern Art Museum where Guernica used to be housed, in the same room were like 40 works of art, you know, lithographs, drawings, paintings, with the same date on them. So you see, he had to have at his grasp all of those tools to be able to create this. And he had to be able to choose what are the elements. What's the famously the element that is missing from Guernica?
Oh,
There's no color.